spring can be very tantalizing. It gets you going and the day is perfect and you get out there and get a lot of work done. And then it pulls you back and says, oh no, it's not really spring yet. And this year has been particularly devious. We get snow and then we get 80 degrees and then we get wind and then it's perfect.
Spring is sheep season because you think spring, you think green grass, lambs, sunshine, and we come out of that winter season and we get ready to go out on green grass with fresh, bouncy lambs.
Our dairy herd started grazing May 5th and will graze at least 200 days. During that time, the cows live outside all the time. They're not in a barn except for the hour or two to come in and milk.
A lot of the vegetables that we grow, they need certain conditions and certain temperatures to be able to actually get outside in the fields. So spring is a lot about waiting and observing, but also being ready to act as soon as the conditions are ready.
In the spring we shear so that the sheep stay clean while they're lambing, so that there are fewer health or other complications during the lambing process. We can better see what is going on once they've been shorn, just with their bodies. And then the lambs are able to interact with their mothers better when they're shorn. When we're looking for the lambing to begin, I do a late night check and then I do an early morning check, and then I'm checking 4 or 5 times throughout the day. We're just making sure that everyone is mobile and eating and appears comfortable. If a ewe isn't eating, she's still mobile, she's still alert. She's probably trying to find a safe, quiet place to start the birthing process then. So she'll go off by herself and she will deliver her lambs.
Lambing went really well. Most of them are born within 2 weeks of when we started. We had 26 lambs. We had a lot of twins and a couple sets of triplets and some singles as well.
A sheep is really only anatomically set up to care for 2 young. And so when we have triplets, we will need to take one of those babies and raise them on a bottle with supplemental feed so that they can grow healthy and strong. They are fun, they are cute, they are adorable, endearing, and they're also maddening, but in reality they're a lot of fun to care for.
I graze cows and milk cows because I'm concerned about the ecology and the health of the land. I really think pasture-based meat and milk is the most ecologically sound way to produce food. If you look at the best farmland in the world in the Midwest, it was developed by perennial grass systems, prairie, being grazed by bison, elk, and other wildlife. There's many different kinds of grasses, forbs, flowering plants, and that's all holding our soil, but it's also putting a lot of nutrients and pulling carbon into the soil. With a grass-based system like we have now, these cows are harvesting their own feed, spreading their own manure and urine, which is really important for the health and fertility of the soil. And then when I bring them into milk tonight, they'll haul that milk back and then we'll harvest it.
emblematic of spring is having lambs in the sheep barn, calves in the pasture, and also, I think, like taking that disc out for the first time and cutting through the field. And that's when you really do smell the soil.
Since we are in a colder zone of the country, we really wouldn't be able to plant a lot of things until June or even later if we were planting them as seeds right into the ground. So the greenhouse is a more controlled space where we can heat it. We can have light from the sun that's helping to heat it, so we can get a head start on things like tomatoes, melons, eggplant that love the heat and that take a really long time. We can get those started early and be ready to go when the field warms up.
Now is the 4 to 6 weeks where you can really give your whole year a good start. If those plants are healthy, strong, they're not too small, then you just set yourself for a great yield. One day it's a blank slate, you've tilled, it's all ready, and the next day, by the time the day is over, you've got transplants all over growing out there, and over the course of a couple weeks, the farm has taken on this whole new flavor with all these different plants out there. And you really feel like you've set the table for the beginning of the growing season. And I love that.
In the growing season, we need a lot more help than we do during the winter. Okay, so you guys are all gonna water the microgreens, and then Brian, you're gonna seed microgreens and then go pick up the lamb. And here's the field map. So spring is when we bring on a lot of new people, and also we have returning crew members. Our harvest crew manager and our pack shed manager, Benji and Ezekiel, who come from Mexico every year. They're really the experts in their areas of the farm. We're training new people, we have new apprentices starting. Everyone's learning together and kind of sharing their knowledge with each other. It's just really exciting to see everyone being excited about the season.
I'm the perennials manager, and I am taking care of anything that does not need to be seeded out every year. So it's everything from shrubs to trees, fruit trees, the landscaping, and asparagus, rhubarb, things you wouldn't necessarily think of as a perennial crop. The orchard incorporates cherries and peaches and plums and apples and pears, and we have currants and gooseberries. We have 22 different varieties of apples. Most of them are heritage varieties, or antique varieties, some people call them. The antique varieties are ones that are propagated or were seeded out before World War II. I start pruning the apple trees in usually the beginning of February. I prune them so that there's enough airflow through them, enough light to get to the apples to color up nicely. Spring is a very exciting time of year for me, just because that's when the orchard starts waking up and you can start seeing how you prune. But while you're doing that, you're looking for what stage the plants are at, but also looking to see if you're starting to see any damage of things. And that's when we start putting out traps to start observing other insect populations. The orchard is young, and that's the best time to really start working with it.
We planted our orchard 4 years ago, and it's still just coming on. But we saw evidence that there'll be a lot of flowers up there this year. And so we're really happy that we have bees on the farm to help pollinate.
The bees here behind me were actually brought in this year. They were new. They came on a 3-pound package, meaning there's roughly 3,000 bees inside of a box with one queen. Once the queen's in the hive, she rules everything. She'll be laying between 1,200 and 1,500 eggs per day. And midsummer, the hives can have 60 to 70,000 bees in each hive. The role of the pollinators, the honeybees, your bumblebees, even your yellow jackets and your wasps that people don't really like during the fall are extremely important for pollination. All the apple orchards, all of these gardens here are all reliant on pollinators. Bees can travel in a 5-mile radius every day. And the bees here have access to a lot of different gardens and their properties and to this farm. The impact of people putting down chemicals that are not friendly to the insects is extremely vital. I can see when I've got bees coming back and all of a sudden I have a decline, and I've heard about an insecticide being sprayed locally. And, you know, nobody wants to see any of the pollinators lost. My big push here for the farm is to make everything better for the pollinators.
For you.
Gracias, amigo.
In spring, we're setting the table, and in summer, we're eating from the table and enjoying the bounty.
The summer is very focused on maintaining our plants and harvesting and then selling what we're growing. Since we can only grow things 6 months out of the year, we really have to focus on getting those to people who are eating them during these summer months.
This is our 7th year managing this farm, and when we started, we wanted to make sure the farm was doing things and engaging in the community in a way that people could understand the value of how we were farming and what we were producing. We started going to the farmers market and selling the CSA shares once we were certified organic.
CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. It's a program where people from our local community, people that live around the farm, can invest in our farm by giving us money up front at the beginning of the season when we have the most expenses. And in return, they get vegetables either throughout the spring or throughout the summer.
And we just knew that the best way to do this was to have people come here. We wanted it to be an experiential kind of membership. They take home 2 large bags of produce, and it lasts for 2 weeks because it's so fresh. When they come, they're excited. You know, they're talking, laughing. They bring their kids. The kids are exploring and helping pick and helping pack. And that just gives a whole sense of connection and community.
It's really gratifying to see the people who are eating the food that we grow and to get feedback from them, hearing about what they're making with their produce, and just seeing the fields full of delicious fruits and vegetables. This summer has definitely been a drought. We just haven't gotten very much rain at all. So we've had a lot of pest issues we haven't seen in the past, and just slower growth of the plants. That means that our irrigation lead, Karem, is running around with the irrigation hoses every single day to try to make sure as many of the crops get enough water as possible.
The drought this year started around the beginning of June. We had just finished our first cutting of hay. At that time, didn't know that it was going to be dry this long. So for a while, we kept grazing as usual. They're still on pasture here, but the pastures are not regrowing like they should be this time of year. So we're having to supplement with hay. Normally, we wouldn't be eating hay like this until October, November.
Because of the drought this year, I've noticed that the grapes are starting to ripen sooner than I had anticipated. We have 3 different seedless varieties, and they're considered table grapes. They're really starting to put their color on about this time of year, end of August going into September. That's also the best time to really start putting the irrigation on, because if we start getting intermittent rains, then some of these have a tendency to split if we get too much rain at one time. We are working on harvesting the elderberries. They're just starting to turn color. We've finished up with the currants and harvest all of them. Pears are starting to come in, and peaches. We did one variety already earlier in the month, and now the second variety that we have has started to come in. So we're very excited. Peaches are chin dripping. They're looking good. They're a little smaller, but this is, I believe, their first year that they've set fruit, so it's to be expected.
The best part about summer is just this gratifying sense of accomplishment. You've set things in motion and now you're reaping that, and you can just see, feel, taste, eat your accomplishments.
Last fall through the spring is all coming together, and it's all kind of the culmination of all the work that we've done. And it's really cool to see that when it does pay off and when you can get that immediate feedback.
Summer validates, makes us feel like we've done the right thing, we know what we're doing, and we're also sharing it with all these great people, which was our intent.